Having an informal conversation the other day with this schizophrenic woman, and I wanted to give them the benefit of doubt and give them the opportunity to express a kernel of truth in the logic of what they're saying. So they were expressing, careful baby, careful, be gentle with the dog. They were expressing a bit of delusions. They were just randomly saying, kids have candy, but kids shouldn't have candy. And I'm like, oh, well, I was just going along with it, be respectful. I was like, oh yeah, well, so this conversation topic just came out of the blue. There was no context. And normally people would be confused by that, but my theory is that a lot of people who have conditions is that there is some logic to what they're saying, but perhaps it's just like there's a few strings loose, so to speak, whereby they may not introduce the topic properly and it may not be connected to something that seems obvious. Like, for example, with BPD, borderline personality disorder, a lot of the time the emotional response to a situation may be valid, it's just the extremity and the timing. So I think there may be elements of that with schizophrenia too, whereby this woman was like, oh, kids shouldn't have candy and I'm smoking too many cigarettes, but what am I going to replace it with, And I just had this realization that perhaps what she was trying to say is that culturally we've been groomed to look outward for a reward. We've got this external reward that we're looking forward to from the age we're groomed from kids, and that may encourage habits like smoking cigarettes. So when you're a kid, you're like, oh, your greatest joy is to get 5 cents and go to the candy store and get a couple of lollies. And then when you're a teenager or an adult, you can have some smokes. So I think that was the trail of logic, but obviously it was strange just to say that out of the blue, but you got to go with the flow, and a lot of these people who so-called have schizophrenia, they've got some good points. It's just you need to kind of round them up a little bit, because perhaps they've just been on their own a bit much and it's like a machine. Sometimes you have a couple of screws loose, they need tightening and oiling, and then they're workable, they're usable. The worst thing you can do is just paint them with this picture like, oh, there's nothing there, they're just delusional, they're just idiotic. You got to kind of go with the flow and just see where that takes them. Are you okay, baby? Yeah, I had another conversation with this woman, and they were saying, oh, they're worried that the authorities at the Australian Federal Police were listening to what they're saying, and going to try and frame them for a crime. And I was like, again, just giving the benefit of the doubt, going with the flow and saying, well, you know what, the authorities are pretty much listening to everyone, but they're not really concerned unless you have a history of aggression, or if you have a lot of followers, 100,000 followers, and you're trying to promote a revolutionary act, or if you're involved with methamphetamine, or human trafficking. That's what they're really concerned about, and scams. So unless you've got a history of violence or you're intending to commit violence, they're not really going to care about you. They've got bigger fish to fry. And yes, obviously there has been historically a trend of people who have mental health conditions that have been framed for things, for crimes, assassination of JFK. That he was someone who was groomed, had mental health condition. So yeah, you can be wary. There is a kernel of truth to that. Obviously, this average Jane, she wasn't anyone special. She didn't have money. She wasn't rich. She wasn't drop dead gorgeous. So she wasn't the authorities have any interest in her. And it's not like she was exposing some truth about some grand conspiracy. So they had every right to be safe and not worry about that. But there is kernel of truth to that. Obviously, everyone's being watched. But you know what? If you're chill, if you got no grand conspiracy to harm anyone, then you'll be left alone. So best thing you can do is just not stress too much and have connections, because if you notice, people who are usually framed for big assassinations and stuff, they usually like got some problems, like they're like sexual deviants or they're drug addicts, and they have no like family support or people that trust them. So you could focus on having good connections, focus on your health, focus on not having any addictions, and then you're less likely to be a target. But not to stress too much about it, because obviously cortisol releases chemicals. Like when you're stressed, you're releasing chemicals. So like keep busy, idle hands are the devil's playthings. When you got all this time in your hands, you're going to actually overthink these things, and what you can do is overthink them. So just be chill, like work hard, provide your community, be healthy, go out for a walk, Hey, see ya. So yeah, basically when it comes to people with schizophrenia, I feel like just try to find a kernel of truth what they're saying, and then just work through it. And at the end, she was like really grateful. She's like, wow, I feel like a lot lighter about this conversation, because I wasn't like judgmental and stuff. I had a strength-based approach too. I was like, well, you come this far, you're already in your mid-20s, and you've gotten through a lot of these things. So that's a sign that you've had these paranoid thoughts before, and you've gotten through them. So you should give yourself a pat on the back. You obviously got some resilience and skills to come this far. So just remember that when you're in time of crisis again, is that you've done it before. You go, girl.